And I think I will hand over to Joshua about placing the question to the group or to anyone who's competent to answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, as the discussions were ongoing during the different sessions, we've been gathering the different questions. We have some very interesting questions. So really, because we have so much time, I'll more or less jump into them and read them out aloud and really point out who's going to respond to that. The first question that we got was, how can sustainable Mauritius be promoted? What are the benefits for customers and promoters? Andreas, I'll let you jump into this. I think it's a general question, but more or less, yeah, you can maybe give some.
Well, honestly speaking, I'm not the one to tell you that, because whenever I was on Mauritius, I felt you are one of the best destinations in the world to talk about authenticity, because many people talk about sustainability as a concept, but authenticity as an embedded concept. I can mention any hotel right now that's coming to my mind, but the topic of authenticity as one of the let's say the big trends that people look for. You're one of the destinations that address that very well, about your food, like about the way you offer authentic experiences. So I believe I cannot answer it better than looking at the best practices that you're already operating on that topic, as far as I see it. Yeah. Anyone else to comment on that as well? So
yeah, I don't know, Luis, or but I think maybe we can get into other questions as well, because there are quite a number. If we still have time, we'll get back to that. The next question that we have is how to attract more eco-tourists to Mauritius? And this question, I'll pose it to Darren. Darren?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think that the evolution of tourism in Mauritius, it has been very dynamic. So since our first tourists in Mauritius in the 1950s, there has been a gradual evolution about the products that we do offer. So we have been speaking a lot about, luxury resorts, spa. We have been speaking about wellness. We spoke also about the golf. And recently we started speaking about the green tourism and also ecotourism. So it is an evolution, I think, and we have shown our resilience in really tackling these kind of new projects and to be in line with what the markets are really looking for. So now it is the time where we really need to sit together and have a kind of broad forum discussion where we say that the tourism of tomorrow will be something different, where we need to adapt to what the markets are looking at. And then on the private sector side, they will adapt to their own marketing, what they do individually. And of course, we need to adapt these kind of marketing also to the destination marketing. And I think that the private sector via ARIM, via IOM, via other main associations, they are already doing that with the MTPA, and the fruits will be reaped sooner or later, because now we see that there's a real communication line which has been established, and whatever needs to be done to attract these eco-tourists are being on the table right now and are being considered.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darren. And Darren, while still at it, I'll pose to you the next question. What do you see as the link between sustainability and cleanliness? The question was, does sustainability also englobe the cleanliness of the country? So if you can jump right into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well before, we tend to be saying that the tourism sector is the second cleanest industry beside the agricultural industry in Mauritius. It is still the case, right? But we see that there are a few things that we need to ponder ourselves on how to improve, and where it comes into the concept of handprint. So how we can do things alternatively so as to decrease those impacts about the footprint and create and co-create new products where we are going to only show a kind of maximum positivity in whatever we are doing. Cleanliness, it is intrinsically linked with our destination. So if there is no cleanliness, if there is not a good environment, there won't be any positive feedbacks from our tourists coming in. And that does not only concern the tourism sector, it concerns the population at large. And the new generation that we are having right now, they are step by step trying to consider, and then it is something which is being anchored in their mindset. But it would take some time. It would need more sensitization. It would need more information for us to really share with the population at large, because this is not something only for the tourism sector, it is for the whole population. So of course, it is something which is work in progress, which will need to always sustain. We have at our level at the Tourism Authority a cleaning unit. We do whatever we can in the tourist sites, but it is not only about the tourist sites, it is about the whole of the island, where we really need to have a very good kind of collaboration with the population at large.
Thank you so much, Darren.
Joshua, can I add something to that?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I think just to build up on what Darren said, I think we have a big problem on the public of sustainability. Okay, there's a big problem of public understanding of sustainable tourism. I'll just give you a couple of years back, the government introduced travel and tourism as part of the A-level and O-level syllabus. Okay, so I was part of the dissemination program set up by the Mauritius Institute of Mauritius Examination Syndicate to go and talk to secondary school students about tourism. And the first question we asked them when we went to different schools is, what do they understand by tourism? And the answer was amazing. Tourism, I'm going to fly. I'm going to travel, right? So for them, when you talk about tourism, it's not about the sustainability. It's not about the contribution tourism bring, the environmental impact that tourism bring. For them, tourism is having fun. Okay, and if you look at the academic perspective on tourism, how the subject has evolved, okay, tourism is always perceived as an industry that have fun. And this is where the local community problem is. And I'm not too sure whether the local community understand the role of tourism in the socio-economic development. And obviously that leads to the poor understanding of sustainability. So I think we've got a lot to do in terms of an internal education and marketing program, marketing the tourism industry to the Mauritian community first, okay, helping them to understand the dynamics of sustainable tourism, what it means to protect the environment, what it means to protect society, and how tourism impacts on those both positively and negatively. And I think this is where we can enhance public understanding of sustainability, and the other issues would follow: cleanliness, hygiene, behavior, all these would follow. So there's lots of groundwork to do in terms of promoting public understanding of sustainability.
Thank you so much, Robin, really, for those additions really to that. I think that's really well put. The next question, Luis, I'll direct this to you. Are not corals doomed to be dead by 2100, whatever happens?
No,
this question on coral reefs, I think, yeah, which is based on some reports. I think here, Jean-Luc actually raised 75% at T and then 1.5 degrees, 99% at 2 degrees. So in terms of coral reefs, what is the current stand and how does the future look like? Also very briefly, please.
So there was also commented in the biodiversity session just now about understanding that there's a need of providing education on how the natural ecosystems are important to build a resilient tourism value chain and a resilient country, and the importance of Mauritius being a seeds country, how these natural environments are so fundamental for the future. We have seen, for example, practices, boats throwing anchors in sensible coral reefs areas, or things like these that are promoted through tourism that could be actually fixed or could be addressed. Or, for example, the problem of coastal development that is one of the causes of sedimentation on coastal areas. So all these combinations of little activities that degrades the environment a little bit, but if you sum up all of them together, those ones are actually creating a huge impact. And it has been seen in the report that I saw. It was that there was a decrease from 49% in 2002 to 18% to 2014. For coral reefs, 40 to 50% partially or totally bleached. So when you think about the value of coral reefs ecosystem for not only for making the beaches look beautiful, but also the communities that depend on food for fishing, for example, or if you make fishing tourism, there's not going to be any fish to fish. So coral reefs are basic structures for the resilient future of Mauritius in general, I would say.
Yeah, thank you so much. So really, we need to keep that discussion going. I don't think, I think, yeah, there's really the need to really preserve this, and the discussion needs to really continue as far as preserving this is concerned. Thank you so much.
Joshua, if I may, we will be having an expert who will be speaking to us about coral reef in our next session. Mm-hmm. So stay tuned together with us. So he will be able to, in a better position, maybe to speak about Mauritius as a whole and the whole marine ecosystem in our next session with him.
Thank you so much. And Andreas, did you also want to make a comment on this?
No, exactly that comment, that we have Francois Rogers with us from Reef Conservation about that. And I think what we said, it's a network of change. If we have a possibility to have NGOs working with hotels and tour operators, like, I don't know, this beautiful truck, Darren, that I visited when we were educating employees about the coral reef bleaching and so on. I think it was Rogers Group together with this, was it with Reef Conservation? Really beautiful example how to educate employees and then really residents about coral reef. I think that was a brilliant example.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andreas. Darren, coming back to you, the whole issue of these COVID-19 passports, do you think this respects human rights? So the question was, do you consider that presenting the COVID-19 passport as a solution respects the principles of human rights and underlying the SDGs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here speaking under the correction of Lindsay. Lindsay, who is more into these committees. All options are being considered right now. So this is a committee which has been instituted under very high-level personalities, including DPM and the ministers. And these are, of course, on the table, and we are looking after all these options for a better control of who are going to get access to Mauritius. The main priority of the government, and this has been flagged since the very beginning of the outbreak of the pandemic in Mauritius, is to protect the population, right? So whatever has been done in terms of the closing of the borders, in terms of the quarantine, which are imposed on all travelers coming to Mauritius, it is at the foremost to protect the population. And we have done it quite successfully so far, because we had a first wave. Now the second wave, we see that gradually the number of cases are dropping down. So it is being managed. So now it is finding the right solution, which will help into the regeneration of the tourism industry, because we need that the industry starts at one moment or another. But now what is the best formula? It is going to be taken in that committee. Now, there is that case about the SDG, about the protection of each human right, about him having had the COVID or not, etc. But all these are being discussed, and then I am sure that the best possible prerogative would be taken by the government and by the cabinet of ministers, so that we go into an opening of the borders. I don't know if Lindsay will wish to add something to that, because you have been part of that negotiation.
Yes, no, in fact, the COVID passport actually is not an issue in Mauritius. I know that in Europe it is being discussed, but I know also that the European Court validated the decision of the, I think the government of UK or France, I don't remember, that people that the doing that I think there's a decision concerning the reduction of the pandemic, but it's still the protection of the population is the main issue. So in Mauritius, actually, we have not been started to talking about COVID passport. What is introduced actually is like many other countries, that you have to have a PCR test before arriving, another PCR test on arrival, then go to quarantine, After seven days, you have another PCR test, and after the 14 days, in fact, it's very tight again, we know. But this has helped to reduce the expansion of the pandemic in the community. This is the main objective of all the measures are being taken to avoid that the pandemic spread among the community. As Darren rightly said, we have been able to control this until now, and this is one of the most important things that we have to control to be able to reserve our tourism industry.
Thank you.
That's why we have all these measures being taken. But you must also be aware that Seychelles actually, even if they have vaccinated more than 60% of the population, they just have around 94 new cases per day, and even some 20 deaths some days ago. So I think
thank you so much, Lindsay.
This is a very good problem.
Yeah, thank you. I think in the interest of time, I think you have very interesting questions and discussions there that really we can keep discussing around them. But I'll just pose one last question that I think there are many other questions that because of time, we are not going to be able to respond to. But one last interesting question that I will probably pose to Andreas is travel and tourism depends largely on aviation and shipping, and they are one of the main producers of carbon emissions. If we are not able to find an alternative fuel, or bearing in mind that we want to have sustainable tourism, do you have to live with this for some time? So really very briefly, then we wrap it up on the questions.
Okay. Well, I was expecting, honestly, that question that is always coming up in such a discussion. Well, first of all, I think we all have to cope with a situation where we have responsibility on. So this is a question for the airlines. I know that this is a question on a high level desk of many airlines. I know that there is hydrogen as a fuel. There's a lot of discussion around that, what we can do. But I really would like to focus on the things that you can change as tour operators and as hotels. So think about the equation we made in the beginning, 5% air emissions of the greenhouse gas emissions associated with air emissions and 30% to the food sector. So if we can change as tour operators and hotels to a more and better supply chain, you will reduce your greenhouse gas emissions as part of the cake. There are other solutions in the room, and I don't want to look into the future, but I think there will be a tax coming on emissions at some point, because we have such a tough regulations on the emissions. So there will be an issue between that and the compensation for that kind of movement, because that's a big topic moving into the future. So compensation is one issue. And I always think about, if we can take some of that compensation for the flight to support the measures that we all discussed today, there will be a huge step forward. That's my short answer, Joshua.
Thank you so much. I think because of time, there are many more. There are other questions, but we can't get into them now. I'll hand this over to you, Katika, then.